Usually I don't talk about NSG Opens or Knights tournaments because they haven't really been stacked with competition recently. These off-season tournaments are usually filled with Tier 2 and Tier 3 teams, and while they're absolutely fantastic, we don't get to see that top level. There's occasionally entrants from Exeter V1, but usually it's pretty uneventful. However, with the start of VCT coming up on the 27th, teams want to get their practice in. During the week of this recording, it's currently the 18th, there are two big tournaments happening that could be equivalent to the preseason of Valorant, that being the NSG Open 14 and the Knights VALORAMPAGE Invitational. Combined, we're seeing an amazing spread of competitors. Teams like T1, V1, Akrew, Complexity, The Guard, Built by Gamers Academy, NRG, KCP, and even Cloud9 are all competing in one of these two tournaments. Basically, for the rest of this week, there will be top matchups every day that lead into the VCT starting next week. With these two tournaments taking place, this is the only opportunity to kind of check the power levels of these unknown North American teams. Having a mix of Tier 1 teams, Tier 1 Gatekeeper teams, top Tier 2 teams, and even a world-class team in Cloud9 sets the stage just to see how good some of these up-and-coming teams are and the rebuilds are compared to the proven entities in the Valorant scene. Welcome back to another episode of Off the Dome. My name is Dominic, and today I'm giving you my North American Valorant preseason scouting report. You need to understand who the benchmark teams are and which teams have the potential. The benchmark teams are the teams that will be confirmed to perform well at this tournament. Not only do they have top players on their teams, but they have confirmed formulas to win, with winning rosters that haven't really changed at all or have changed very little. Basically, if any other teams perform well against these guys, they're the real deal. But who are these teams? Cloud9 will be the ultimate benchmark at the VALORAMPAGE events. Not only have they been the most successful team against other NA teams with a stellar performance at the NALCQ, they also performed the best at Champions when compared to the other NA powerhouses in both Envy and Sentinels. They have the momentum going for them to be the potentially best team in North America, so for teams to take games or even a set off Cloud9 would be an insane performance. Their recent consistency puts them far ahead as the number 1 seed, so an upset is unlikely, but if you see a 1-1 game, maybe tune in to see how they're doing. Version 1 is another one of those teams that is considered a lower tier 1 team. They haven't really been able to replicate their world-class level after Stage 2, but remain one of the top teams despite losing their IGL vanity to C9. They placed 5th at the NALCQ, and even entering some Knights and NSG tournaments and performing incredibly well, so they're definitely still up there as one of the big names in North America. But with a little bit of roster changes, switching out Odorous for Xander, it's going to be interesting to see how they play, but we'll definitely see them up there in the upper echelon of the tournament. Although they struggled at the end of the year, NRG is another one of those premier NA teams. Though they're not title contenders quite yet, their roster is incredibly promising after picking up Hayes from TSM. They've played a few open brackets with good results, only losing to other proven teams like KCP and XSET, but based on previous performances, NRG is the perfect Tier 1 Gatekeeper team. However, with consistent improvements, they could actually challenge other top teams come time for the VCT. This is not only a great event to see how other teams will perform to NRG, but how NRG will actually perform themselves against some of these upper level teams. This weekend is to get the extra tournament practice they need to gain a little extra clutch come time for VCT. But if there's other teams that challenge them, it's much easier to check their power level. The Pioneers is another one of those teams who grazed the top of North American Tier 1 Valorant, but went out and reconstructed their entire roster after doing so. After an amazing Stage 3 performance, they replaced everyone on the team except for JMO and picking up other top Valorant players like JC Stani, We Did, Thief, and Critical, all of which coming from Tier 1 teams. With a complete reconstruction comes a period of growth, and instead of just showing up the first time expecting to frag out like some other teams, they have been consistently participating in events during the offseason to regain their form. While they still have some growing pains struggling against teams like TSM.A and Akrew, they have beaten other top Tier 2 teams like TSM.A, Akrew, Built by Gamers, NRG, Knights, and Sonics. While I'd still consider these guys underdogs in the Tier 1 scene, they're definitely at the level of a Tier 1 Gatekeeper, but still hungry for better results. Keep an eye out for these guys. TSM Academy is in another similar position as the Pioneers, but also in a completely different one. Why the fuck did I write that? After their construction in the offseason, the team went through a period of growth before becoming consistent performers at a Tier 2 level. Although they haven't gotten the chance to prove themselves against the highest Tier 1 teams, they've taken sets off of Version 1, Knights, Renegades, KCP, and Built by Gamers. Although they've had some tough losses themselves to teams like Knights, Radiance, and Zero Marksman, they're still hungry and itching for a challenge. Because of their academy status with TSM, they're actually unable to compete in VCT events, as only one main roster and one all-women's roster is allowed for VCT events. This will be the best opportunities they get to challenge those top regions. VALORAMPAGE is going to be a big thing for these guys, so watch out. Then there are the contenders. We have a wide variety of possible contenders and unknown entities in the Tier 2 tournament scene. Some teams have had glimpses of greatness but haven't gotten the opportunity to prove it. There are some teams that have went through complete roster rebuilds, and this will be their first opportunity to test it out. And there'll be other teams that finally get the opportunity to knock at the door of NA's best. Let's start off with T1. T1 is the first team I want to highlight because of their complete roster rebuild. T1 in 2021 had some struggles. They went through being contenders at the beginning of the year, struggling throughout the year and trying to regain its footing and having a solid team by the end of the year, but just scrapping it all for an entirely fresh squad. While T1 as an organization has some work to do, the squad they've picked up actually has like one of the highest potentials in North America. Not only do they have 100 Thieves IGL Steel, one of the best IGLs in the game, they also have Exit Dwifo, Curry, the new guy Pony, as well as one of the hottest Valorant prospects that they straight up just stole from 100 Thieves, 7. On paper, this squad seems like a super team that someone dreamt up. They're participating in the NSG tournament, placed as the first seed, and... Wait, what? Yes, at the time of recording, they've actually lost their first game to Zero Marksman Silver. Not even the main roster for Zero Marksman. Zero Marksman's second roster. Yeah. To be fair though, they've come back through bracket to take down other impressive teams like Built by Gamers at the time of recording. However, it'll be difficult to recover that public image no matter the results of the tournament. I will state though, I don't expect this team to win the tournament. This isn't because of their early loss, and not because I think they're a bad team, but it's because an entirely new roster needs some time to develop chemistry. They have 5 players who haven't played together before, and their roster was only confirmed a few days ago before the tournament, so I expect them to stumble a bit as they sort of navigate the new waters. They definitely have the potential of a Tier 1 team, but will need to continue to prove it, as consistency will tell all. Keep an eye out for these guys though. Built by Gamers and Built by Gamers Academy, I want to highlight these guys because both these teams are currently in limbo, but both have insane potential and points to prove. We all know Built by Gamers for their early 2021 activity, even taking a set off of the post-10s Sentinels, but they've been underground for a while. They came out recently with some roster changes, playing with some top prospects both in Bang and Boy, and they have a lot to prove with this new roster. But why am I talking about Built by Gamers Academy, an academy team for a Tier 2 team? Well, this is because I believe that this academy team might actually be better than their main roster. It's definitely close. We've seen Built by Gamers main a few times in open brackets during the offseason, with some variations trying to test who's going to be the 4th and 5th members, but they usually lose to top 10 teams like TSM.A, Pioneers, and most recently T1. While it seems like they have a winning roster, we'll need to see how they perform over time past the growing pains, having potential as a gatekeeper team. Now, when a Tier 2 team signed an academy roster, I thought it was super weird. I always thought the idea of an academy roster was to field new talent through it to go onto the main team. But Knights and Built by Gamers Academy seem kind of redundant. At first, I thought I was right in predicting this. Built by Gamers Academy didn't do very well with their first few outings, picking up everyone from the Silk Road except for one player. They were dropping losses left and right to unknown teams, and it wasn't that good. However, the lost player from the Silk Road, Blackheart, found his way back onto the roster, and they immediately turned it around. While they're still dropping some games to other Tier 2 teams, they have improved significantly with their full roster, and with the facilities and the organization supporting them, they could eclipse the original Built by Gamers roster. They even won an entire NSG on their own as a Tier 2 Academy team. Both of these teams actually got out in round 1 of playoffs in the NSG tournament in day 1. I'm currently recording this in day 2. But both teams will be participating in the more contentious VALORAMPAGE. Keep an eye out between the battle between these two teams, the proven players finding their footing versus the boys who just want to get some wins. I actually have an entire video cooking up on the Guard as an organization, so if you want to see when it comes out, subscribe to the channel. I'll be making more videos about Valorant scene, especially when the VCT comes back. But let me summarize my opinion on the Guard. The Guard is not only an organization that cares about growing their team beyond just the gameplay, but the players are all fan favorites gathered together like a fucking Avengers squad to make the dream happen. This team was formed with grinders with a focus on giving them the resources to improve over time instead of expecting immediate results under the threat of being dropped. kind of ironic though. They had Psalm from the Redacted Dignitas team, Seiyaplay aka Spider from T1, Jonah P from Immortals and Complexity, as well as 2 young stars in Valen and Net. All these players are super flashy and super fun to watch with the synergistic potential of a top team. Before this week's NSG though, the Guard had struggled in the tournaments they've played in, either losing in pools or round 1 in the playoffs. They've taken some good games against teams like Soar and Resonate, but nothing spectacular with their caliber of players. They recently did actually drop Psalm from the main roster due to continued poor performances and replaced him with some dude named Trent, who I later found out was actually Habib, who is another tier 2 grinder. While Trent is actually living up to the hype, they've begun a run at NSG, and I'm excited to see where this roster goes. This is the first time we get to see this untested roster, and I'm super excited to see how they'll do. So far, I've talked about teams that have star power to knock at the door of Tier 1 or even cement themselves deep within Tier 1. But there's one team that I've deliberately left until the end because the potential they have is out of this world. Akrew is one team that has been making waves in North American Valorant scene. While everyone was focused on champions with the battle of NA versus EU at the highest level, this team was at home training long before and long after the war was over. Akrew was formed in October of 2021 with a mix of Tier 2 veterans from Easy 5 and Complexity, Calm, Pancakes, Kompeki, Gucci, and Neon. If you're familiar with Tier 2, you've probably heard of these guys before because they've been entering everything they can since Valorant has started. As Easy 5, a lot of these guys were on a team that took sets off of Nobles, Knights, NRG, and Ghosts, but now with their newest form, they look near unstoppable in Tier 2 tournaments. True king among kings, they've won the past 5 tournaments they've entered, including a LAN, and they're on a 31 game win streak. Sure, you can point to their level of play in some of these wins as just padding, but the consistency of this team is unheard of in North America. These aren't teams to sneeze at either. They've beaten top tier 2 teams like Radiance, Knights, Soar, and Built By Gamers Academies, as well as knocking at the gates, winning 2 sets against KCP. This is the first time they'll get to challenge the top North American teams at the VALORAMPAGE event. Out of any team in this tournament, I mean any team too, this is the team that I think has the highest potential because of the consistency and the undefeated record they have recently. If there's anyone to challenge Cloud9, it would be this team. Many top NA teams tend to avoid Tier 2 tournaments to strat hide, continue developing behind the scenes through scrims and practices, but while these teams are doing that, Akrew is putting themselves on the front line to prove that they are the best, and they're succeeding in doing so. The pressure of tournaments are long gone, and this team is one of the most seasoned in all of NA Valorant. This is one team you need to keep track of this weekend because it wouldn't surprise me if they make some upsets during the VCT weekend. This week truly is like the preseason of North American Valorant. Getting to see dream matchups for the first time in what feels like years is awesome. I'm excited to see how these games pan out over the upcoming days and how the single elim one-shot VCT will go, which I actually think they just changed like yesterday, but I haven't read it yet, to be honest. And if you watched all the way through this video, hey, why not subscribe? Clearly you like Valorant, clearly you like esports. I'll be covering more Valorant esports, VCT, and other analytical Valorant videos in the future. So if you like that type of stuff, tap in. And if you're interested to what I have to say, I have a Twitter which you can follow and ask me any questions you have. As well, I have a Discord which will be hosting Watch Party as well as cheering for the fan favorite Rana who made it to day 3, baby. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. And if you liked the video, why not let other people in the Valorant competitive community know? I feel it's a great way to catch up on the teams you know and love. Anyways, hope you have a good one. Enjoy the games. Peace.